Hi everybody, my name is John Schwetz, and what I wanted to share with you today was actually just a little bit of a background story so you could get to know me, and also share with you a no money down real estate technique that I've used many times to make thousands and thousands of dollars with no money down. So, a little bit about my story. Well, I sort of started my whole journey in about 2008 when I was 23 years old. I had just read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki for the first time and had played cash flow a couple of times. Now, I wasn't really making that much money. I was working at a sales job. I actually was living in my parents' basement. And what sort of sparked me to do all this was I actually found a spreadsheet that I had back in 2008 that just sort of showed where my mindset was at and where actually my net worth was at, and how I was able to drastically change that by just starting with using this simple no money down real estate technique. So here's the actual spreadsheet that I had. I don't know if you can see this. It says Cash Flow John Schwetz 2008. My monthly income was about $4,000. As you can see, my monthly expenses were about $3,910. So every month I had about $90 left over, and this is sort of how it broke down. I had taxes, mortgage payment, which was actually rent at the time, gas, insurance, phone bill, food, other expenses, stuff like that. And that's really where I was at, and I'm not embarrassed about that. I think a lot of people might start there. Now, here's what ended up happening was through reading Rich Dad Poor Dad and by playing cash flow, I knew there had to be another way out. Like here's what I was in quote unquote investing in at the time. So here were my assets. As you can see, I had 2 cars worth a few grand each. I had bought actually some silver. I don't know what caused me to do that. Probably reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. And of course, like most people, I was invested in the stock market. Now I only had about $7,000 invested in the stock market, but I was so good, I was able to turn $7,000 into $6,600 in a pretty short period of time, so about a negative 15% ROI. So I don't know if any of you could relate, but I really didn't know what I was doing in the stock market. So that's sort of the quote-unquote assets I had at the time. Now here's what my bank account looked like. Oh man, checking account had $200 in it, savings account had $8, and this other account I had $350 in it. So altogether I had about less than $600 plus some cash and cars and stocks and silver and some miscellaneous things. Now the good news was I didn't actually have any liabilities, like I didn't have any credit card debt or line of credit debt, even though I had a credit card and a line of credit. And I'll explain a little bit about what I use those for in a second. So basically, this is where I was at in 2008. Now, I ended up seeing this infomercial on how to buy real estate with no money down in the US, and I was like, wow, that's really, really cool, and I really want to know how to do that here. So I started looking online and found that there was a guy who said he could teach me how to do real estate with no money down. So I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. He's putting on a evening seminar in Edmonton in the fall of 2008, and I went to it. And he talked about how you could buy properties with no money down, and my mind was open to the possibility because I had read Rich Dad Poor Dad and played cash flow and stuff. I knew those deals were out there, even though I didn't have a clue how to get them. So I listened to this guy for about 2 hours, and then at the end he said, okay, well, I've got the course on how to do real estate with no money down. It's $5,000. I was like, $5,000? That's like almost 18% of my entire net worth for one course. I was like, what could they possibly teach me that would be worth $5,000? And it was actually more like $5,200 or something with GST. But anyways, I don't know what it was, but I stood around. I was the last person to leave, and I just said, you know what? If I want things in my life to change, I've got to change some things. Now, I had a $10,000 Visa limit and $10,000 line of credit limit, so I slapped it on the credit card. I put $5,000 on my credit card and went to this course. Now it was great. I learned how to do no money down. I learned how to do assignments, learned how to write contracts, do some marketing, and that was in the fall of 2008. Now what ended up happening was I think it was almost too much information for me, like too much too fast, and I ended up getting back, kind of going back to my parents' basement, and just doubting myself and being like, I don't know if I could do this. Like, I'm only, the excuses, oh, I'm only 23, you don't really have much money, all that kind of self doubt that we go through. So I actually didn't do anything with it for 6 months until the spring of 2009, when I was like, okay, I really got to do something, because I had gotten a new job. I hated it. I actually quit on my first day, and I was like, that's it. I'm just going to do this real estate thing. I just got to make it work. Have you guys ever had a point in your life where you're like, okay, I just got to make a decision and do it? So that was me. That's what I did. Now, I ended up taking another, this time it was actually a Rich Dad course that was in town. Same thing, evening thing for about 2 hours. I knew there was a course coming, so I signed up. It was a $500 weekend course. I got great information, played cash flow, met some great people, and there they were selling some other courses that you could invest in that taught you the specifics of how to buy no money down. So I thought, okay, that is what I need to get me going. So the 4-course package, I think at the time, was about $20,000. I partnered with somebody, invested another $10,000 into these courses, and they were the difference for me. They honestly changed the game for me. But anyways, what happened was I signed up for these other courses, and I ended up going out and actually finding my first deal. Now, I was making offers and stuff, and I had used what I learned in my first course. I actually had a bunch of, they're called Bandit Signs. They're just these signs that say, basically, we buy houses and your phone number. And I actually had a lady call me on one. Now, I ended up going and meeting her, and here's what happened. This is where it gets really cool, guys. So this was June of 2009, just to give you an idea of some timelines here. So here's what happened. I got a real estate purchase contract. This was just, I think I borrowed it or photocopied it from some realtor or something at the time. I always know what date my contracts are in, because so up here at the top you can see June 16th, 2009. I don't know why it was number 4, but it was. My company and or assignee, so that'll become your new last name as you learn to make real estate offers. The buyer, the property, it was out in Stony Plain, Alberta. Sort of the things that were included with it. Now, here's where it was really cool. Now, you guys saw my bank account. I didn't have a lot of money. I actually gave her a $2 initial deposit. So when I say no money down, I guess that's a little bit of a lie. You need at least $2, okay? So $2 down, that's the initial deposit with the promise to pay $5,000 upon removal of all conditions. See how it says that right there in number 3.3? So only once I remove conditions does she get that $5,000. Now what happened was my initial offer was $187. You can see that got crossed off. Went up to $215. That got crossed off, and we ended up settling at $225. Now I'll explain what happened here in a second, but basically at first we settled on $225. Now what were the dates? So it was June 16th. This was written. $2 into this deal, and I could buy it for $225. And the closing date was August 15th, 2009. Cool. I also had conditions until August 15th, 2009. So basically what that meant was I could buy this property at any point from June 16th until August 15th, 2009, and I had until August 15th, 2009 to make my decision if I wanted to buy this property or not. So basically I had 8 weeks to find a buyer to actually sell this deal to, and that's how you make money with assignments. So here's how I protected myself, because if you make an unconditional offer, you, or me in this case, I would have had to pay $225,000 for it. But as you can see here, under 8.1e, it was subject to my lawyer's approval, an appraisal satisfactory to me, due diligence by my advisor and satisfactory to me, and also the renters were to be vacated on or before possession date. Now, the reason she gave me so much time on this was she had renters in there that were just trashing the place. She really wanted to sell. That's how come I got a great price, and she called me on my signs. So it ended up working out. Now, what happened was throughout all this kind of goings on, I ended up actually finding a buyer. Now, before I get into that, I'm just going to talk about this. This is the addendum, which basically just outlined what the assignment means. So it says here, the buyer shall have the privilege of assignment of this offer and any agreement resulting from it to any company incorporated or to be incorporated, or to any person or firm, or combination thereof, on or after acceptance, provided that this transaction does indeed close. So it basically means that I could sell this deal and she would have to close with them as if they were me. Okay, so I did find a buyer for this. It was actually a buyer at one of the courses that I went to, so that was pretty cool. Here's what ended up happening. This ended up being signed July 30th, 2009. I wanted a $10,000 assignment fee for doing this deal, and of course I had it for $225. Now the guy only wanted to pay $225, so I went back to the seller and said, look, I can get this deal done for $215. So we actually changed the price down from $225 to $215 on July 30th. Now this was awesome, and here's what ended up happening. It was a simple one-page agreement called an assignment of contract, as you can see here. Here, I'll move it so you guys can see it. All right, so assignment of contract. So what it says is for $5,000 paid up front, and for $5,000 when the transaction closes, basically the buyer gets to buy the property for $215. I get my $10,000. The seller is all done, and we're off to the races. Now, as you can see here, it actually took place, and everything ended up happening on the 11th day of August 2009. So from June 16th to August 11th, that's how long it took. Now, obviously, it wasn't a 8-hour-a-day job. I think I ended up spending about 12 hours total on this entire deal. But it was awesome, guys. This was my very first deal ever, and I was able to assign it for $5,000 up front, and then supposed to be another $5,000 on closing. And the seller got a great deal. She ended up getting rid of her headache, getting out of a bad situation. I got a great deal. I was able to make $5,000 up front with only a $2 initial deposit, and the buyer got a great deal because the property was worth about $300,000 fixed up. So what does a 24-year-old do who just made more money in 10 hours than he ever did in a month before? Well, I'll show you. What did I do? Vegas, baby. That is exactly what I did. I was so excited. I was 24 at the time. My sister was turning 21. We decided, let's celebrate. I actually was able to do this real estate thing. We ended up going to Las Vegas. There's me chilling at the pool at Mandalay Bay. Went out with my wife. We got a limo. We just really lived it up. We went to the ice bar there. Played some beer pong at Excalibur. Just hung out at Mandalay Bay. Here was a beautiful dinner that we ended up having at the Bellagio Hotel. And then, of course, lastly, we ended up getting a really nice bottle service at this really hot nightclub at the Wynn Hotel. Now, I want you guys to just picture this for a second, because this could be you. Just close your eyes and picture, okay, you had to put up some money. You had to invest a little bit of time into yourself. But you got a contract, you got a deal, you marketed it, you did everything you could. You found a buyer who was willing to pay you $5,000 up front for doing this deal. You got a check in your hands, and now you're celebrating with your friends, with your family in an awesome city. And maybe traveling's not your thing. Maybe you want to buy yourself a car, or even pay off some debt, or reinvest it into yourselves. Now, the key is to at least celebrate your successes, because here's what here's the biggest thing that I did was, by doing this and doing this trip, it anchored it for me. It was such a powerful memory that I know from that point on that no one would ever control me again. I could always make money if I put in the time. It was so powerful. I knew I would never have a job again after that. And I haven't. And it's been an amazing life, and we've celebrated all along the way. That's what life's about, is celebrating your successes. So just picture, you're here. Now you're here in Las Vegas. You're in a beautiful nightclub. You're with the people that you love. You're with your family. You're having a great time, and you know that you will never have to work for anyone again, because you can make money in real estate with no money down. Sorry, I'm getting a little emotional. It's a powerful feeling for me still. And I hope you have it too. I look forward to sharing it with you. And over the next couple weeks, I'm going to be sharing 3 more no money down real estate techniques, and I'd love to hear about your successes. Post on the blog, email me, whatever. I'd love to hear about them. I hope you guys have a great night.